Look, I think what we're seeing is a lot of people wanting to control their destiny, and part of that is to look at a self-managed super fund if they haven't been happy with the performance, or again they're looking for the control of that. Now when they see self-managed super fund and they realise that they can also get involved in direct property, they certainly are knocking down the doors. I mean, it is the fastest growing space in the self-managed super fund industry. Terrific point. I mean, in terms of how skilled up are financial planners to give direct property investment advice, you know, our view on that is that we don't believe they have the skills and the training to actually give sound property investment advice. So we're asking the financial planning industry and people working in the industry to upskill and become qualified property investment advisors, so they'll be in a position where they can actually give better advice around direct property investments. The advisor's going to have to make a decision themselves in terms of, you know, whether they think that they can upskill themselves. I mean, technically it is another licensed investment product, although it's not regulated. We like to think it is an investment grade product. So if they do believe that they have the fundamental understanding of how things grow in value and how they perform, then they could certainly look at doing themselves, and I would encourage people to do that. I'd be confident enough in some of the members of the financial planning industry to do that. If they don't have those skills, they can certainly outsource that to someone who is qualified to give that property investment advice. And in terms of their professional indemnity insurances, sometimes they need to also look at that to make sure that they may not be able to give that advice through their dealership group. So if that is the case, then they should be looking for members of the Property Investment Professionals of Australia and looking for qualified property investment advisors to help them in that space. Look, there's no doubt with property investment advice, you normally see people who are going into property leveraging their positions. So, you know, if you're going to set up a self-managed super fund, you're going to have, you know, a bare trust to set that up, and you're going to have gearing, usually, is how most people do it, to accelerate the size of their portfolio. So there are definite risks associated with any type of investing one person does, so they need to understand those risks. And I'd be saying to anyone who is a trustee of their own self-managed super fund to really know the limitations and to get a better sense of what they're doing, because there might be advice that they've been getting, professional advice, but it's all care, no responsibility. The buck stops with them. I think as the industry grows, and I think as more and more people buy property through their self-managed super fund, I think there will be some tweaks around the regulation, and we welcome consultations with the government on that space. I mean, we know the industry better than the financial planning industry themselves, so I'd be encouraging some type of tweaking around that, but remembering the lending is already regulated by the NCCP, so brokers are in that position to also advise in that space. And I think in terms of the financial planners, they've obviously got their licensing regime around them. The weakness is in the licensing regime around property investment, and that's obviously why we're welcoming the government to have any consultation with us around advice and tweaking that for self-managed super funds. Self-managed super fund is not for every investor, and certainly for the ill-informed and the novice investor, I would not be jumping into a self-managed super fund. And anyone who mentions that as a starting point for someone who's just starting out in property, be very careful. They may be advising you based on their own self-gain in terms of the commissions or the fees that they might be charging. So I'd be saying to anyone that the pitfalls around a property are just as good as any other asset class, or as dangerous as any other asset class. So you really still need to do your research and understand the fundamentals that are driving property. In regards to gearing, yeah, look, if you're going to leverage yourself into a position, make sure you still are obviously diversifying and balancing that portfolio out.